I don't know who this guy is, but if you do, let me know his Instagram handle down below because I need to thank him for this ad he did for Avid because it taught me something new and why I should be living in this century, not back in the 90s.
The bounce mix dialog, assign your different stem sources. You can save your outputs as a preset and recall later for future use.
So what was I doing before this came up in my feed? Well, if you look here are all my printers in my mixing template. Basically, there are sends from each of the channel that go to one of these printers. And when I want to capture all my stems for the client, I play everything back in real time and record them on audio channels. Whereas now what I can do is I can actually delete this, delete it all, delete all of it because I don't need it. Press Command Option B, and then I have now a client delivery. That all those sends just get directly printed and I can bounce it offline. And I save myself so much time and headache and CPU and like doubling up of files on my storage that it just happens like this. So what are we doing today? Well, we're going to go over my whole mixing template and rebuilding it. But before I do, if you love mixing, I have a 5-day mixing accelerator. Okay, it's all the juice from my newsletter, but for you guys for free. And if you want to join that, click in the link in the description below. And now let's jump into this. So first things first, obviously, I'm going to get rid of redundant channels that I would print on. Simply because, like I said, Command Option B, I've created this client delivery template that takes all the outputs. So all my guitars get sent to us, channel printers, blah, 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 blah. And then I can just export them as I need, and I have all my stems for my clients. Now we're going to actually go to the plugins because not all these plugins I'm using in my mixes anymore. I used to use the SSL channel strip quite heavily, but probably for the last 12 months I haven't because I found it was sort of boxing me into one direction on a mix. So I actually never got rid of it, so I'm going to get rid of that. But before I do, I'm going to keep some stuff. I've got this really wild Phil Collins style reverb here, which I always keep for toms. And basically all it is some EQ limiting, but mainly it's a short reverb with micro shift. And that becomes that really classic Phil Collins tom reverb sound, which I like. So I'm going to keep that. Decapitator, I'm going to keep on the drums parallel, but something that always happens is in sessions, I always have to set that IO because it's not set up in the template. So basically the drums parallel is just a crush on the decapitator. So I'm actually going to put that in N mode because that's typically what I use. We're going to keep you, so you'll go from F to J. The bass, stereo, not using these plugins anymore. So typically I'm going to keep this one, the bass mono, but make it inactive because I'm not really getting that much mono bass. But here what I'm going to put is the red 3571 because this is becoming sort of my main chain where I have the bass lift on going into a 76. And this isn't because I'm always going to use this. This is just like I turn it on and it's good. It's simply because I want my tools quickly reachable and accessible. So that's like something when you're setting up your template. It's not about having the exact EQ you're going to use on every single mix. It's just about having the tools available at arm's reach. So when you start processing something, it's already sort of patched in and then you just have to dial it, or sometimes you leave it in bypass and you never use it, but it's just there. So you don't have to go through plugin menus and type it in and get it up. So we're going to keep you, we're going to keep you. Anything I'm going to keep is going to F to J because then we're just going to remove all the plugins off those rows there. On guitars, am I using Sheps? No. That's like super old school. I used to. Let's not do that. Synth 1 to here. Yes, I use that chain. Yes, I like that sometimes. So we're going to keep you guys just to here. Boom. Drag you guys down. Change, whatever, man. Vocal chain, that is pretty much still the same for both my vocal chains, except the input. I always have to set this input whenever I'm mixing, and it's always annoying because it should already be in LV PP1. It should already be set up. And often what I'm finding is actually I'm going to do something here. I'm going to duplicate this and create a chorus and a verse parallel chain. Because typically what happens is I always do this in the session. I have the PP1 and the PP2 sends, but I never have anywhere, means parallel process, for the parallel process 2 sends to go. So typically what happens is parallel process 1 is my chorus, parallel process 2 is my verse processing, but I never have that labeled out. So we're going to batch rename this here and take anything that has dot dupe 1 and change it into space verse. Not going to trim, we're not going to add, we're just going to do that. Perfect. This can go into a folder. Where are we? New folder. Move to new folder. And that's going to be a basic folder for LV, PP, chorus. That's all my chorus processing on vocals. And again, this will go to a new folder. LV, PP, verse. Perfect. That's cool. And I'll do the same here for these because I do the same with background vocals. I'll switcheroony that up, batch rename, and yeah, so I want my new folder, BGV, PP, verse, BGV, PP, chorus, parallel process, chorus. Cool. So they're done and dusted. Effects, you're good to me. And my mix bus. This is something that's changed. I'm not using any of these plugins on my mix bus. I've got to do a whole video on my mix bus separately because at the moment, the way I'm actually, you know what? I'll shut up for a second. All I need here is standard clip. And I'll explain why. Actually, I'll explain why now. Basically, the only reason I have standard clip here with the -5 ceiling, okay, that's all I do. You can do -5 or -6, it doesn't matter. It's just an arbitrary ceiling. Turn the oversampling off. Is that instead of gain staging all the channels, because most mixers come in printed wet and they already got their balances, and gain staging adds a lot of extra processing to get everything balanced up and back and level matched, I just throw everything in because we've got a floating point system, as in most modern doors do, so we're not ever really hitting the ceiling. All I need to do is worry that on the way out, I can control how much goes over the ceiling. So I set an arbitrary ceiling with standard clip, which is -5. And then here with my VCA fader all, I can gain stage the entire mix. So this basically, if I drag this across to here, where we got some channels and shit, there we are. This basically is a fader for all my audio channels, and it controls all of them. So if I go up to 0, they're all at 0. But basically what this allows me to do is to gain stage into the mix bus. So that way I know that if I open up standard clip, I can see how far over I'm going over this ceiling. I can back it off with this fader or increase it with this fader. So I know how much sort of clipping I'm getting on the top of my mix. And literally that's how I set my levels. I throw everything into the session. I monitor in standard clip where my ceiling is. If I'm hitting it, if it's hitting way too hot, I bring it down. If it's not getting close to what, I bring it up. And then everything is set up for me to start mixing, and my monitoring level is pretty relative to that. So I don't have to change the volume. I know exactly where it has to be set, and I'm good to go. So I'm pretty happy with this as just like a generalized layout for my mixing sessions now. So there's another question I got to ask you, and that is, what do you color your tracks as? Okay, leave it in the comments below if you've made it this far. Drums for me is always red, bass is blue, guitar is green, synths are like this turquoisey blue, doesn't make sense. Orchestral is orange, vocals are always pink. They're pretty, they're pink, and then background vocals are a different shade. Effects are always yellow, because like I think of effects as like electricity, and yellow is obviously what the color of electricity is if you've ever watched Pokemon. So that's that. And anyway, so what happens? Like I got my drums, these here drums, everything goes to the mix bus. Actually, no, I've got to update that because bass, kick, kick, stereo kicks. These aren't recorded kicks, but all my bass and kicks, what I want to do is I want to move these to a folder. Yep, they should be in a folder. This is a routing folder. The reason why all my kicks and basses are in a folder here is because, and this is going to actually change the way I lay this all out, is because something I've started doing in mixes, and I'll show you this. I'm just going to move my bass. This is going to be weird to mix in now because my bass is going to be first, not my drums. And the reason is because I want to visually see my kicks next to my drums there. The reason why I have it set up like this, where the kick and bass are together, is because I actually got to put these plugins in Pro Q4. In Pro Q4, we have the ability to add all pass filters. So I'll make these all pass filters. Okay. And with these all pass filters, what we can do is we can rotate the phase at fundamental frequencies of either the kick or the bass. And what that allows us to do, or me to do when I'm mixing, is from between the kicks or kick layers and the bass, I get to change their phase relationship before they sum together. And this way, I can actually control their interaction with one another separate to the mix. So that's why I have that there. That's really important thing I've been doing recently in my mixing. So I needed to do that in this template. Just making sure I'm not missing anything else. So I got my bass, I got my parallel for my bass, parallel for my mono bass. I can make that inactive. I might hide things I don't really use. Like I don't really get mono basses that often. It's always stereo. Same with the mono kicks, try to make inactive. Same with the snare drum. Like I'm rarely working from live recorded drums. These will still be available to me, but I'm just making them and hiding them and making them inactive. So I don't need to have redundant processes when I'm putting this together. Same with the guitars. Same with my synths. Orchestral, like really rare. I get mono channels for that. And vocals are pretty common. I do get mono vocals. So I'm going to leave these here, and then I can duplicate them out based on the number of stems I get. Effects, I'm cool. Here, I'm cool. Actually, no, I am not. I am not cool. What I need to do here is set up something that's annoying when I'm mixing, and then I have to print out the no lead vocal and the instrumental, is copy all of my settings across to the other mix buses because I like to have them all export at once. But one way to circumnavigate that is, so I'm going to put gold particle because I do use the gold particle on my mix bus. That has to be, yep, that's cool. Cool, it's cool. And then we've got vintage limiter. We'll just get this mix bus set up. The reason why I wanted to set this up now is because even though none of them are doing anything, is when I go to group this, I can go mixed bus groups, and then I can go follow globals. Globals are the inserts at F to J. So controls. And what this allows me to do is while I'm mixing, if I change, so I'll get two God particles up. If I change any of the settings on the mix bus, it also changes it on the instrumental and the TV mix bus as well. So basically, when I make a change on one mix bus, it correlates to the instrumental and the no lead vocal or the TV mix. And then I have all my VCA faders here, so I can control all my kicks together, all my snare drums together, all my low perk, or my high perk, or my drums, like all drums, all the basses, guitars, etc., as I need to. That's a really good handle to have. Actually, that would be pretty cool on like a control surface, just having those VCA faders out when I'm mixing. So I don't have to scroll all the way to that side of the screen. I just have it off to the side and I can quickly tweak it. But yeah, that's my mixing template. And like I said, join the mixing sprint, the mixing accelerator. Down in the description below. It's free. It's all the best juice on mixing. And if you've spent some time here watching this mixing video, you're definitely not going to want to miss out on one of these. So go check them out. Until next time, take care.